Welcome to the CISSP Cyber Training Podcast, where we provide you the training and tools you need to pass the CISSP exam the first time. Hi, my name is Sean Gerber, and I'm your host for this action-packed, informative podcast. Join me each week as I provide the information you need to pass the CISSP exam and grow your cybersecurity knowledge. All right, let's get started. Good morning, everybody. It's Sean Gerber with CISSP Cyber Training, and hope you all are having a beautifully blessed day today. Today is what? CISSP Question Thursday. So we are going to be going over some CISSP questions related to the domain 6.2.1, and that was based on the content that we had on Monday. So we are pretty excited about that. I said E. I don't know why I said E. We're excited about having some questions related to 6.2. But before we get started, one thing I wanted to kind of bring up was there's just a recent article I saw in the Register related to the Ukraine attacks that occurred. Now, obviously, geopolitical stuff, we don't really necessarily get into the CISSP, but we kind of talk about hacking and dealing with those types of activities. But if you all have seen the news, the Ukrainians have changed the way warfare is being done. And it's very interesting how this has changed. And coming from my background with being in the military and flying bombers and just really intelligence, all those pieces around the military apparatus, this whole new paradigm now of drones being launched from basically containers around the different country of Russia and attacking these very strategic points. Now, I say all that with the thing that how it's changed in that it is now what we call asymmetric warfare. And now the Ukrainians are attacking the Tupolev, basically the aircraft manufacturers, the bomber makers within Russia. And part of this was around the fact that they were able to get access to all kinds of personal data, resumes, purchase records, you name it, of the Tupolev type activities, like the corporation. And they're the ones that make the bombers for the Russian military. So the point I'm trying to bring up around that is nothing is safe. And if you are the way the world has changed, thinking it's going to be big country against big country, well, now you're seeing how Ukrainians are attacking the Russians in a way very similar to the American Revolution in more of a guerrilla warfare type activities. But they're using things that are very interesting and also commercial off-the-shelf equipment that is relatively inexpensive in relationship to the things that they are blowing up. And so the point of it is that between hacking that occurring and physical destruction that is occurring, we are seeing a complete paradigm shift in relation to warfare. So I'd just say all that to kind of talk about the fact that as you are in cybersecurity, your world is just really expanding beyond what we first started, well, at least what I first started back in the early 2000s. It has just gone way off the charts. And we kind of had suspicions it was going to end up kind of going down this path. But now with the way the drones have taken place and now the ability for people to have activities in a way that is just totally out of the paradigm shifts or out of the thought process, this is going to be an interesting, very interesting place that we end up going in the future. So as a security professional, you are going to have to learn how to deal with all kinds of things that you probably, at least I never had to learn when I was just getting started in security. So it's pretty cool. It's very interesting, very dynamic, and can be very challenging depending upon what side of the fence you're on. But again, that's all I wanted to kind of talk about here. Again, they talk about the Ukrainian striking bomber makers with a hack attack and the fact that they were able to get access to the Tupolev aircraft manufacturing company. Now, let's move on to some of the questions we have for today. Okay, so these are the questions you're going to have in the CISSP Cyber Training. If you head over there, you can get access to all these questions that are available to you. And the point of it is to help you kind of guide you through the various questions and so that you can be better prepared for the CISSP exam. So we're going to start rolling through some of the questions, again, related to domain 6.2. Okay, question 1. Which of the following describes the primary goal of a vulnerability assessment? A, to identify weaknesses in systems and security controls that could be exploited by threats. B, to exploit identified weaknesses and gain unauthorized access to systems. C, to determine the financial impact of a successful cyber attack. Or D, to continuously monitor network traffic for malicious activity. And the answer is A, to identify weaknesses in systems and security controls that could be exploited by potential threats. Again, vulnerability assessments, a very important part of any organization. You need to consider doing them. Question 2, a security professional is conducting a vulnerability scan of a web application. The scan reports a high severity vulnerability, but upon manual verification, it is determined that the vulnerability does not actually exist. Okay. This scenario is an example of what? A true positive, B, a false negative, C, a true negative, or D, a false positive. So again, basically, scan the web application and it comes back and says, yes, there's a problem, but upon further discovery, it is not a problem. So the answer is a false positive, D, right? False positives occur a lot. They can happen with security tools, but therefore it's important for you to tune and train these tools so that your false positive rate goes down. Question 3, which of the following components of a security content automation protocol, SCAP, provides the standardized scoring system for describing the severity of security vulnerabilities? Again, which of the following components of the SCAP provides a standardized scoring system for describing the severity of your security vulnerabilities? A, common vulnerabilities and exposure. B, common configuration and enumeration, CCE. C, Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS, or D, Open Vulnerability and Assessment Language, OVAL. And the answer is C, right, Common Vulnerability Scoring System. The Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS, is free and open industry standard for assessing the severity of a computer system security vulnerabilities. CVEs you hear a lot about, they provide the naming system. CCEs are the configuration issues, and OVAL is for describing test procedures. Question 4. A penetration test where the testers have no prior knowledge of the target system's internal structure, network diagrams, or source code is known as what? Again, a penetration test, the testers have no prior knowledge of target systems, internal structures, or network diagrams. What is this called? A, white box testing. C, black box testing. C, gray box testing. Or D, crystal box testing. Testing, not texting, testing. And the answer is B, black box testing, right? It simulates an external attacker's perspective, and they're testing no internal knowledge of this target system. The goal is then is you have no idea. You're just going in to see what is there. And this is really an approach where the system's defenses determine what would happen, what would be encountered, and so forth. So that is what they call black box testing. Question 5. During which phase of a penetration test would an ethical hacker actively gather information about a target by interacting with live systems, such as port scanning and service enumeration? Again, during which phase of the penetration test would an ethical hacker activity gather information about a target by interacting with live systems, such as port scanning and service enumeration? A, reconnaissance. B, vulnerability analysis. C, exploitation. Or D, enumeration. And the answer is D, enumeration. That is the active phase of information gathering where the tester is directly interacting with the target, trying to figure out information. What's open, what ports are open, what user accounts are available, network details, and so on. So that is what they call enumeration. Question 6. Which type of security control testing involves conducting assessments using valid, key point here, valid credentials, allowing the scanner to simulate the actions of an authenticated user? Okay, so which type of security control testing involves conducting assessments using valid credentials, allowing the scanner to simulate the actions of an authenticated user? A, authenticated scan. B, network discovery scan. C, web application scan. Or D, an authenticated scan? Wonder what that one is, right? Authenticated user, credentials. It is D, authenticated scan. An authenticated scan, obviously, they also call that what they call a credential scan. It allows the tool to log into the target and the application and with legitimate credentials to then therefore see what it can find. Many unauthenticated scans really don't give you a whole lot of information. So one of the aspects you'll want to consider when doing scanning is an authenticated scan. If you don't have it in place now, I would highly recommend that you do that because it's going to give you a much better reading of what are the vulnerabilities behind the authentication. Question 7. Which of the following is a key objective of security control testing? A, to validate the effectiveness of implemented security controls. B, to simulate all security risks from an organization. C, to ensure 100% uptime for all critical systems. Or D, to automate all incident response procedures. Again, which of the following is a key objective for security control testing? And the answer is A, to validate the effectiveness of implemented security controls, right? So when you're looking at understanding what's going on, of the objective of a security control testing, you want to find out which ones are actually valid. And you validate these and their effectiveness through using these various types of scanning capabilities. And that's really the main function of it. So you want to test the controls. You put controls in place, you want to be able to test them, and that is the ultimate goal around security control testing. Question 8. Security team is reviewing the logs for suspicious activity after a reported incident. The activity falls under which aspect of security control testing? A. Pen testing. C. Log review and analysis. C. Vulnerability assessments. Or D. Code review. Again, security team is reviewing the logs. What are they doing? What does this fall under? It falls under B. Log review and analysis. So log reviews and analysis are a crucial part of any sort of security control testing and security operations. It again involves looking at the application logs, the systems, and so forth. It's a very important part, and you should consider doing it. Question 9. When performing a penetration test, the phase where the tester attempts to gain control of a system or escalate privileges using identified vulnerabilities is known as what? A. Reconnaissance. B. Enumeration. C. Vulnerability analysis. Or D. Exploitation. Again, performing pen tests, what phase of the tester attempts to gain control of the system or escalate privileges using identified vulnerabilities is known as D. Exploitation. Exploitation is the phase where the pen tester actively attempts to leverage the vulnerabilities that they've been able to find against a compromised system. And this basically comes down to is they're trying to achieve a predefined objective by gaining unauthorized access. That's the ultimate goal. Question 10. Which of the following is a significant drawback of a false negative in a security assessment and testing? A. It leads to unnecessary remediation efforts and extreme costs. B. It provides false sense of security, leaving the actual vulnerabilities unaddressed. C. It indicates vulnerability indicates a vulnerability was detected correctly. Or D. It overestimates the true security posture of the system. Again, which of the following is a significant drawback of a false negative? It is B. It provides a false sense of security, leaving the actual vulnerabilities addressed. So basically a false negative says, hey, you're good. You're good to go. No worries, mate. Everything's fine. But in reality, yeah, you have a problem. So false negative can lead you down the path of thinking everything is all hunky-dory. Question 11. Which is the main difference between a vulnerability assessment and a penetration test? We've talked a lot about this on CISSP cyber training. So what's the difference between a vulnerability assessment and a pen test? A. The vulnerability assessment actively exploits weaknesses while the pen test only identifies them. B. A vulnerability assessment is a continuous process while pen testing is a one-time event. C. A vulnerability assessment focuses on identifying weaknesses while the pen test attempts to exploit them to demonstrate the overall impact. Or D. A vulnerability assessment requires specialized tools while pen tests can be done manually. And the answer is C. Right. Vulnerability assessments, they focus on finding weaknesses, and pen tests are designed to exploit those weaknesses and to show I own the castle, right? The vulnerability assessment says to you, oh, yes, the castle can be broken into. The pen test says, I'm just going to kick the door down and walk right in. Question 12. The security team is discussing various approaches for testing a new application. They decide to provide the testers with some internal knowledge of the application's architecture and source code. Well, that's pretty interesting, but not full access. This approach is best described as what? A. Black box testing. B. White box testing. C. Gray box testing. Or D. Red team's assessments. And the answer is C. It's a gray box testing. Basically, you're getting some elements from the black and white box, and it gives you a little bit of insight into what's actually going on. It does allow you to get further into the organization, and it helps you it really is a good thing if you are on a tighter budget and you want to be able just to see what they can find, but you want to not have them waste a bunch of time trying to kick the front door in. So I would highly recommend gray box testing. I've used it. It's a much more cost-efficient approach. But you just got to determine what are the needs for you and your organization. Question 13. Which of the following best describes the purpose of a common vulnerabilities and exposures CVE system? Again, which of the following best describes the purpose of a common vulnerabilities and exposures system? A. To provide a naming system for publicly known cybersecurity vulnerabilities and exposures. B. To provide a common language for describing security testing procedures. C. To standards for scoring of vulnerability severity. Or D. To define security configuration checklists. Again, which of the following best describes the purpose of a common vulnerabilities and the CVE system? And the answer is A, to provide a naming system for publicly known cybersecurity vulnerabilities and exposures. So it's basically a publicly disclosed list that has different vulnerabilities, and they have names to those. It provides a unique identifier so you know which one it is, and they then also work in coordination with the various vulnerability management teams to ensure that you are properly being protected. Question 14. When designing a security control testing strategy, what is the significance of, air quotes, perspective? More or less internal versus external testing. So the perspective, what is the benefit, the significance of that? A, it determines the cost of the testing engagement. B, it influences the tools and techniques used during the test. C, it dictates the reporting format of the test results. Or D, it defines the scope and potential impact of the findings by simulating different attacker vantage points. Air quotes, perspective, right? So again, what is designing a security control testing strategy? What is the significance of perspective, internal versus external testing? And the answer is D. It defines the scope and potential impact of the findings by simulating different attack vantage points. The ultimate point is just what is it like if you get into the environment from an internal perspective, and what happens if you're just trying to get bang on the door from the outside? What are the different kind of control mechanisms and how are they working depending upon your perspective in the network? Question 15. What is the primary purpose of red team exercise in a security control testing? Again, what is the primary purpose of a red team exercise in security control testing? A, to validate the effectiveness of an incident response plan by simulating realistic attacks. B, to perform automated vulnerability scans on an organization's network. C, to provide recommendations for security policy updates. Or D, to train the Security Operations Center analysts on new specific tools. So what is the primary purpose of a red team? It is A, to validate the effectiveness of your incident response plan and by simulating potentially real attacks. The goal is if you have a red team that you're banging on the door, they want to see how does your IR team respond to these banging on the door. It might just be a tap. So do they hear you tapping? And then you have to tap a little louder and you tap a little louder until eventually the IR team scrambles to their feet and goes and addresses the issue, right? That's the purpose of a red team. Now, that, and they also are used for helping. They do pen testing, and not necessarily, they may work a little bit with the red or with your incident response teams to do kind of, they call it purple teaming, where you would actually then teach some of the folks while they're trying to break in. I highly recommend that. It's a really good thing if you can do it. But that being said, that's the purpose of a red team. Okay, so go to CISSP Cyber Training, head over there, get some free content. There's tons of stuff there. There's also some stuff that you get. I mean, honestly, it's a fair price. You go and you buy what I have there on CISSP Cyber Training. It is fair. Getting your CISSP is expensive, but if you don't want to spend the time to go to or don't have the money and don't want to go to a boot camp, but the CISSP Cyber Trainings program is amazing. It will help you. And yes, I am biased, of course, because I created it. But that being said, it will help you. And it's the cheapest amount of money that you will ever spend to get your CISSP. The only difference is you got to do the work. It's a self-study program. Now, we have also other tiers that are available to do mentorship and other ways that I can help you. But bottom line is that you can get all the training you need. If you're studying for the CISSP, go to CISSP Cyber Training and get access to it now. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will catch you all on the flip side. See ya. Thanks so much for joining me today on my podcast. If you like what you heard, please leave a review on iTunes, as I would greatly appreciate your feedback. Also, check out my videos that are on YouTube and just head to my channel at CISSP Cyber Training, and you will find a plethora or a cornucopia of content to help you pass the CISSP exam the first time. Lastly, head to CISSP Cyber Training and sign up for 360 free CISSP questions to help you in your CISSP journey. Thanks again for listening. Hey, thanks again for listening today. It's been my pleasure to prep you for the CISSP exam. Are you interested, though, in some free CISSP exam questions? Head on over to freecisspquestions.com and sign up to join my email list, and you'll receive access for 60 free CISSP questions each and every month for the next 6 months. That's a total of 360 questions just for signing up with CISSP Cyber Training.
You'll also gain access to other free CISSP resources, so just head on over to freecisspquestions.com and sign up, or head on over to CISSPcybertraining.com and sign up today. Have a wonderful day, and we will catch you on the flip side. See ya.